Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I'm also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, let's talk about what you can do to bond with an avoidant over text message, okay? A lot of you guys have told me you guys are like in more long distance relationships, you don't live with your partner, or you communicate more prominently over text. And so today, we're going to talk about those things. Now, I do want to first go over some of the texting behaviors that occur. Now, this is for fearful and dismissive, more if they're fearful, if they lean dismissive. Avoidants tend to take longer to respond to text messages, usually because they need time to process the text message. However, there are some avoidants that do not do that. There are two most of the common types of texting that I see. The first one that we mentioned, I feel like for you guys that's more common, possibly because a lot of times those individuals are a little bit more emotionally overwhelmed, so they might be a little bit, I guess, younger in their healing journey, in the sense they haven't processed through their healing entirely yet. And so a lot of those folks tend to struggle with texting. But I've noticed two types of behaviors, okay? One is that they're very quick to respond, but they tend to be very short, not very emotionally detached. The other is a more delayed response, but these types of folks are actually able to be more emotionally expressive and exploratory because they have that downtime. So these are two ways that I notice avoidants tend to text like, okay? And so today we're going to use some strategies to connect with an avoidant through text using 4 different types of approaches, not necessarily approaches, 4 different categories, and we're going to give an example of each type. And this is mainly to build trust, okay? The very first one is very common, where a lot of you guys might want reassurance. And how do you ask for reassurance over text message so that you and your partner can get what you're looking for in that connection, but also not push them away? And so a lot of times we want to first start with some form of a disclaimer or some sort of acknowledgement that they might not be as emotional as you are in a positive sense, okay? So, for example, if you guys already have established that maybe you want more emotions from them and they're a little bit not as expressive. So you guys already know that, okay? You're in agreement. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just a reality. But you might say something like, I know you're not that expressive and emotional, and I normally don't mind and I can appreciate our differences. However, today I'm actually feeling a little bit insecure, and I think maybe a compliment would make me feel better. Do you like my outfit, or do you like this picture, or whatever it is? Do you think I look nice? Right? Just something simple that allows you to also respect yourself, but also you're respecting them. So the reason why this can be helpful is because it shows that you guys are allowed to be different. It's okay that you need some reassurance sometimes. That's okay. It's also okay that they might not always know when or how to provide it. Both of those things are acceptable, and you guys can still have a romantic connection and a relationship. And it allows that you're encouraging them to look at it a little bit from your perspective, but you're also looking at it from their perspective. It leans both directions, which creates that bond that allows people to start opening up and being more comfortable, okay? The next one is some form of a safety check. I've talked about something like this before. It's always important to recognize that two people perceive safety and connection differently. However, checking when somebody gets home after a certain trip or a flight or whatever it is a pretty common type of communication in relationships in general. So you can mention something, let's say they're on a flight to the airport or whatever it is, a flight to wherever they need to go, and you ask them, I hope that you have a good flight. Can you let me know when your plane lands so I know you're safe? Very simple, right? Very simple. Now, we don't have to use it as a flight. Maybe they were out somewhere and you want to make sure they're okay. Hope you're having a good time. Can you let me know when you get home, when you get a chance, so that I know you're safe? Very simple. You're not doing anything too excessive, but you're also not just sitting around wondering if they're okay and then crashing out or having that emotion surge up, and then you either shut down if you're a fearful avoidant or crash out if you're anxious or fearful, right? And so these things are very important. Sometimes avoidant individuals, because they are emotionally detached a little bit, sometimes they need some emotional guidance. What can they do to show up for you? Because they might not think about these things. And that's very important, okay? The next one is after an argument. This one's tricky for every attachment style, including secure. Nobody likes arguing with their partner. Typically, that's not fun to do, okay? But sometimes after an argument, it's really important to acknowledge where you both are coming from. I know that we both had some strong feelings and we said things that we probably didn't mean. I'm not mad about that. I hope you can forgive me. I think we're both human and we make mistakes. I don't expect us to be perfect. However, I think I'm ready to move on from it. How does that feel? So you're ready to move on from it. Avoidant individuals really like not sticking to things that are what they perceive as negative. They want to move on from an argument. They don't want to really stick to it, okay? The next one could be very similar. We're still talking about arguments. What if you want to talk about the issue? What if you are not ready to move on from it? How do you accommodate and communicate that, okay? You can mention something like, I'm not at walk in the park either, and I'm sorry that I overreacted. I think we still handled it well. However, there are some things that I'm still not 100% sure about. Do you have some time this week that we can discuss it a little bit? I promise I won't make it too long, but there's still some things I want to cover, right? You're still expressing yourself. You're still being open about their perspective, and you're being thoughtful about their time. I'm sure you'd rather talk about it right now, but they might be a little bit overwhelmed about it. And so you found a compromise within yourself and also between you two in the relationship, which I think is very important. Avoidance can really appreciate that, okay? The other section, which is very common with any sort of disconnection with an avoidant and their partner, is when anybody is asking for some sort of connection. Typically, it's going to be the non-avoidant partner, okay? Let's say you want more often, you want to date more. Like you want you guys to go on romantic dates, okay? How are you going to approach that? You can say something like, I appreciate when you make effort for us, and I notice the effort. I was wondering if we could both make more effort to go on more dinner dates. How do you feel about that, right? So you put it on yourself, but you also put it on them. But you also mentioned you appreciate them. That's very important. Avoidants are very sensitive to not being appreciated, okay? Another example is sometimes avoidants are pretty sensitive about birthdays, gift giving, holidays. We've talked about this on my channel before, and I'll make a video a little bit more about gift giving in general, just because Christmas is coming up and holidays, because so many holidays are coming up, right? And so I will make a separate video on that. But for now, we're just going to cover a little bit of it. Let's say we'll talk about birthdays today, okay? Let's say you want them to spend time with you on your birthday. You might say something like, I don't have any plans on my birthday, and I would like if we could go to dinner together. I'm not necessarily saying that's something that we have to do, but I felt like it would be a great opportunity for both of us. How do you feel about that? Right? This would be a little bit more if you guys have not been together for very long, right? Because of course, if you guys are together for a little bit longer, you might say something more along the lines of, I'm thinking this year I want to spend my birthday with you. I understand that we've had some disagreements about this in the past, but I was wondering if we could do something a little bit low key and just go have dinner at X, Y, and Z. And then afterwards, maybe we can go to the park. How do you feel about that? Right? You know your partner better than, of course, I do in a video, but accommodate it to based on not just how often you guys have been together, but his or her particular personality, okay? Now, I do want to emphasize there is no magical text message that will guarantee a response from your partner. However, we do need to recognize by understanding how you can communicate with your partner, you can have a little bit more of an easier time bonding with your partner, okay? This one is not very easy to summarize because it's really just more about like prompts. But in general, I'll just quickly try and summarize it. Often avoidants have two types of texting strategies. One of them might be a little bit more dry responses. They might be quick with responses, but they're short, a little bit more emotional. Another type is they're more delayed. They might take hours, even days to respond. However, we're seeing a bit more of an emotional display. And 4 types of recommended types of styles for texting would be a safety check of some sort, texting after an argument, asking for connection, and seeking reassurance. I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.